What happened to the bully in your class? U/Mammoth Director 184 responded. She did an insane amount of growing up during college, including having to uproot her whole life to care for her family after her mom died suddenly. She reached out to me and others I know personally and directly addressed the bullying. We went out to lunch, she bought, and she was incredibly honest, apologizing and acknowledging what she did and why it was wrong. She's now running a successful animal rescue organization with her long-term boyfriend, and I wish her nothing but happiness. U/Disco Stud 1515 responded. His father was caught stealing millions from the community. Dad was a wealth manager and all his clients were friends and neighbors in a sort of small town. The family was really put through the ringer of embarrassment and the bully was a wreck for a long time. I guess he realized all the wealth and arrogance that he grew up with was stolen from everyone he knew. I saw him years later and it was like seeing a different person. He had changed his name, walked differently and held himself with a different posture. We spoke for a few minutes and it was almost like he was genuinely interested in me. He didn't go out and say sorry for what he had done, but it seemed like he wanted to, but though it would be tacky, maybe I'm reading too much into that interaction, but it was a little weird. It was like he had been forcing himself to be an actual nice guy. U/Kevin0611 responded. Beat a fellow drug dealer to death during a transaction gone bad. Sentenced for murder, but then somehow it was downgraded to manslaughter. Served about 10 years, and judging from his FB posts, I know his brother, he has a girlfriend, a job, and has cleaned up his act. Edit to add what happened. Just looked up the story. He was convicted of second-degree murder with depraved indifference. Then the State Court of Appeals changed the law interpreting the definition of the charge. The federal court vacated the conviction, finding that the defendant was factually innocent of depraved indifference murder. He agreed to plead to the lesser charge of manslaughter. So he had already served 10 years and was released after the plea to manslaughter. U/Tryanythingtwist responded. After years and years of being bullied in middle and high school by one particular guy, I took my dad's lawnmower in to get serviced and look who we have here. Good ol' racist fuckboy Sean walks up to the counter covered in dirt and oil and sweat. He immediately knew who I was. Funny thing is I hated this dude for so long, I even had a vision on snatching him by his shirt over the counter and beating his face into the ground. I was skinny skater punk now. Nothing was said between us during that interaction other than the services I needed. When I went to go pick the lawn mower up a week later, he asked me to step outside. In my mind, I'm thinking this is it, I'm going pummel this dude. He lit up a cigarette and for about 15 minutes, apologized for how he treated me in middle school and high school. He told me about how he was brought up and has never been as tough as he came up. After high school he went in the military and was forced to work with other races. He even explained that his hatred towards people that weren't white faded away BC of the Marines. He said he had been fucked over more by his own race than others and started to think about his ideology. He is a humble guy now, with regret, but is man enough to admit his faults. We shook hands and even hugged. I haven't seen him in about 10 years, but if I do see him again I still shake his hand. U/Alice with Azelles responded. Oh, I have the best one for this, guys. Promise. So my bully was a guy, I'm a sheik, and he was relentless. From kindergarten through middle school. Peaked in middle school. He would stick his leg out and trip me when I would walk by, then laugh. Crap like that. He annoyed everyone. Imposed on your personal space. Would tell lots about me to others so they would not like me. It really bothered me deeply BC. I could not understand what I had done to have someone so adamant about humiliating and hurting me. Publicly. Well, after middle school he disappeared to some other school and I slowly repressed it all and forgot of him in my active thoughts. Then I get my first apartment with a friend and a real job and going to college. I'm sitting on my new couch in my new place watching To Catch a Predator. Like everyone did back then. Next up on To Catch a Predator, and I hear his name. I hear that jerk-off's name. And there he is walking in to meet an underage girl he has very disgusting text convos with. I could not believe it. I stood up and screamed aloud. I felt so vindicated for the feelings of hatred and inability to forgive him as a younger girl. U/Briffy03 responded. I do fine now. Was a stupid kid that did stupid things to a boy who didn't ask for it. We ended up being friends after he had the courage to call me out. I got suspended, and both our mothers agreed to meet and to force us to spend time together, to know each other. I never was more grateful to someone than those two women, my mom obviously, but also his mom. She was a tall and fat lady, seemed really cold and severe at first glance, understandable as I had beaten up her son, but ended up being like a second mother to me. She showed me that even trashy humans like me can become better if given a second chance in the right conditions, and that lesson will stick with me forever. Agnes, I miss you. Samuel Horton responded. The worst one LVE ever met in my life never exactly had his own comeuppance. His father was wealthy from being the assistant harbor master in one of the largest fishing communities in the country, so he never exactly had to work. From what LVE heard, he lives off his family's wealth while being a hobbyist photographer. His parents did get divorced and his drug-addicted mother passed away. Another little monster who was a year older than me died at 21, when he fell off a 200-foot cliff while hunting with his girlfriend's family. This kid who tormented me non-stop at Boy Scout camp enlisted in the army, was injured and is now partially paralyzed, living a secluded lifestyle under his family's watch. The Boy Scout bully's close friend who was very antagonistic was busted 4 years ago during an FBI dark web sting operation, for trafficking drugs. His awaiting sentencing. Deep Sleeper responded. My elementary school bully, in Korea for context, continued being the bully till high school. Somehow he ambushed and beaten the untouchable student while he was alone. It turned that untouchable student was Korean mafia son. Bunch of black cars park up at his apartment, burly guys armed with metal pipes and bats would constantly waltz around the neighborhood and make the bully's family life hell. Apartment neighbors got fed up being terrified with the mafia at their neighborhood. Cops will not show up until the mafia dispersed, to the point they pressured the bully's family to move out at once. Never heard what happened after they moved. Not entirely sure why the bully did that, maybe due to his pride. Maybe a proof he is the jang, old Korean term for a student who is the toughest and strongest brawler, who'd constantly challenge or be challenged by other classes and or other schools. Bad Jeans Woman responded. Fucker went on to serve in the military, recently retired. Wish I would have broken his arm worse. As one final bully tactic a few days before graduation he and his fucked up friends spike my drinks at a party. I didn't know I had a condition that my liver doesn't process alcohol right because I didn't party in school. So I drank 8 large solo cups of pink lemonade vodka, and still appeared and sounded completely sober. I walked out to my car intending to drive home. A friend of mine comes running out of the house and stopped me, told me what the assholes did and drove me to a friend's house to sleep it off. But we quickly figured out something was wrong. So ER visit. I was 5 times over the legal limit. I could have died or killed someone driving because I didn't know I was drunk off my ass. And this motherfucker gets to go into the army with 0 repercussions. Fuck you Nathan Caruso. I am a cannibal responded. The main person to bully me was a kid named Jonathan. He was a massive asshole. He bullied me relentlessly from 7th grade to junior year in high school. I was talking to a girl I was friends with and he decided it would be the best time to crush up a pack of cookies and dump it on my head. I had long hair and it sent me into a rage. I was fat, which is why he bullied me, so I couldn't catch him, but one of my friends saw and tripped him as he ran by. I picked him up and slammed him on the ground, then punched him in the face a few times before teachers broke it up. A teacher saw the whole thing and was yelling at him before I even got to him. I didn't get in any trouble other than a few days of in-school suspension. He got suspended for a week. He never even looked at me again. He is currently a homeless junkie in my hometown. Every so often he makes the news or a post from the PD on Facebook because he does stupid crimes like stealing scratch-off lottery tickets from stores then tries to cash them in. It's hilarious. Deleted responded. Mine always bullied everyone who wasn't a football player, jock, or cowboy. He honed in on me because I was a nerd and more feminine. Turns out he had major regrets about everything, and at his last class reunion, he was 2 years ahead of me. He tried apologizing to people and a lot of people wouldn't forgive him for what he did. A lot of it was borderline charges should have been filed type stuff. He made a couple kids suicidal. Well, after a lot of people wouldn't take his apology, I guess he went into a major depression and ended up hanging himself and left a letter stating that he hated who he was, and how he treated people and the pain he inflicted on everyone, and that he couldn't live with himself anymore. The really sad thing is I did run into him not too long before this and he did apologize to me, which I'm surprised he recognized me because I am female presenting now, and I accepted it and told him I didn't hold anything against him. He really seemed sincere and that he changed. But I understand how some couldn't forgive the trespasses he made upon them. Sad all the way around. This is why everyone just needs to be nice to everyone, even if you don't like them, like what they do, or whatever. These stories always end in unnecessary sadness or end of life. Patient Letters 42 responded. I was the bully. Actually, I got bullied first for my weight and then realized that I am stronger than 90% of my peers and simply counter-bullied. I thought people would respect me if they know I will beat them up if they bully me. I was a child, like literally 10 years old. With 14 I had the realization that nobody was ever truly my friend, they just smiled at me so I am nice to them. Made me work on myself a lot and be very self-critical. I am 30 now and completely in harmony with who I am. Last fight I got into is over a decade old and it was with a guy who essayed my ex-girlfriend. I try to be a good person every day. I always offer my help, I am there for others and I love making other people happy. 180-degree turn you could say. Who's that dog Mr. PB responded. This was in mid-2000s. He beat the shit out of me in middle school, military boot to the face, breaking my nose, forcing me to have emergency surgery. My dad sued the kid on criminal charges, his parents on hospital bills responsibility and the school on a child endangering basis. We got really good deals. 1. The kid was expelled from the state school system and spent time in juvenile. He never got back to school. 2. Parents had to pay for my plastic surgery bill, plus other monetary charges. They had to sell their house shortly afterwards. 3. School was forced to pay my family for their lack of security and the school district immediately performed an investigation, finding out several irregularities. They had to pay fines that made them operate in red numbers for a while. The school don't exist anymore, as of now. When I was in med school, like 8 years after all this happened, I was walking out the hospital when I decided to buy loose cigarettes and a candy from the street vendor. He said my name and looked me right in the eyes. It was that dude. We both stayed in shock until my friends called me and had to leave. When I finally got in the car, I bursted laughing out of disbelief and a weird sense of karma. Blast manager responded. Used his father's money to spend 7 years on the other side of the world to complete a 5-year master's degree. Downright slob and a dirtbag who was way more concerned about partying and living large than accomplishing anything in life. But the plot twist was that his father only would pay for him when he was a student, so when he landed his first job, a basic entry-level position, and had to pay bills and answer to a superior, he was hit hard in the nuts by reality. Instead of lashing out or coping by drinking, he just went. Time to learn about life and to become a responsible adult. Now he has a manager role that pays $75K and lives in a modest apartment, and is one of the nicest, most inclusive guys I know who has no issues admitting his past mistakes and apologize for his behavior. People can change. _cry_1904 responded. Got a girl pregnant, then the cops came because turns out to no one's surprise he was beating her and the kid. Then got another girl pregnant and married her, rinse and repeat with the beatings and the cops. Then surprisingly became a born-again Christian, got another wife and another kid, then got arrested again because he was using the Bible as a way to justify beating both of them. Kid ended up within an inch of his life. Honestly, his social media rants were pretty entertaining during this time, multiple Bible verses about how it's his right to kill his spouse and child and no one should interfere with it because Invisible Sky Daddy agrees with him. Something women and children are property and not people, so the police shouldn't have gotten involved because hitting women and children is like hitting a TV or a toaster. And you'll never guess what happened after he got out. He dropped the whole born-again Christian thing, but everything else is the same. Yet another woman who can change him by giving him a kid, and yet another arrest after he beat them. U/8below2049 responded. My bully was an Eagle Scout and the son of a teacher and a nurse. He was the perfect kid on paper. He made my life hell. He got his friends to make my life hell. Our senior year he failed some classes and for the first time in his life, he couldn't smooth talk his way out of failing. So he kinda lost his mind. He decapitated a deer and threw its body on the front door to the school. He wrote a note with the names of the teachers who failed him in their classes with threats to their life. Years later I saw him in a bar and he bought me a beer. He looked like shit. I owned a successful company with quite a few employees. One of those satisfying moments in life to be in the same place but also in very different places. U/Moth responded. I was lightly bullied in 6th grade by this kid who had so many behavioral issues that they wouldn't let him advance to the next grade, even though as far as I know his grades were good enough. Once in 8th grade I saw him in a 6th grade line and openly laughed at him. The teacher didn't even say anything. He ended up stabbing a kid with a plastic fork at lunch, a 6th grader, when he was the age of an 8th or 9th grader. And either got expelled or kept doing shit like that until he was old enough to drop out. I haven't heard a thing about him since then. Edit. Actually, now that I think of it, he stabbed the kid with a normal fork, and this incident caused the district to switch to plastic. Which is weird because I feel like plastic is equally stabby, isn't it? You could even break a plastic spoon and stab someone with the sharp part. Can't do that with silverware. You/deleted responded. Ran into them years and years ago that a friend invited out to a group event. They tried to talk to me, they pretended to be nice but definitely tried to sneak some stuff they used to say into the conversation to remind me exactly who they were, and I told them something along the lines of "You're kidding, right? You were horrible to me, go away." The bully and their sister were awful to me for years. It was actually some seniors, some of the popular kids, in my class. I was a sophomore, it was an elective, who were nice and taught me how to not care about what the bully and the bully's sister said to me and feel better about myself. I was never friends and I never hung out or anything with those seniors in my class, but those couple of guys and girl made a huge difference in my life. They made me realize I can just be me and be happy. They probably thought nothing of it, but if I happened to ever see them again, LD shake their hands and thank them. Oddly enough, just talking to me and explaining how to ignore my bullies was such a heartfelt and wonderful thing to do. You/deleted responded. Not exactly sure about the big bully. Hope he's dead, honestly. What a jerk. I did happen to date one of my bullies right after high school. We met when I was working in a bar, and he apologized for his treatment of me, so L accepted a date. Things were going pretty good, but he was going into the Marines. We kind of kept in touch for a while, and then he ghosted me. I figured he found someone else, and it was never serious, so I moved on. I later found out he had gotten a USMC bulldog tattoo in basic, and then washed out. He was so embarrassed, supposedly, that he didn't want to contact me. He was later arrested in a series of domestic violence episodes, so I guess I dodged a bullet. You/spacewoman responded. I recently looked up the girl who brutally bullied me throughout elementary school to the point that I dreaded going to middle school because I didn't know if she'd be there. She became a highly respected and awarded teacher in her community and has been celebrated for being there for a lot of kids who didn't have anyone else. Sometimes I wonder if she remembers how much she shredded me, and I wonder if her actions led her to do some deep soul-searching inner healing as she grew up so she could give back or make it right the best she could. Another part of me feels crushed that she's living this highly successful and fulfilling life after the horror she put me through all day, every day for years and years. We were just little kids though. It's very conflicting, but I'm glad she's doing well for herself. You/blacksheep998 responded. I had a group of bullies in middle school. The ringleader of the group went crazy one day and started stabbing people in the lunchroom with a fork, starting with himself. I wasn't there, but I heard he had stabbed himself over and over in the leg, and when a teacher came to check on him because he was bleeding, he started trying to stab other people. There were no serious injuries, but that was enough to get him removed from the school. It was also a recurring thing with him. After one of the times he'd beaten me up, we were both in suspension, and he had to be sent to the nurse's office because he had brought a stapler to school, opened the handle like if you were attaching stuff to a wall, and then smacked himself in the head with the business end of it until there were staples literally embedded in his bleeding scalp. Once he was gone, most of his group of friends just stopped coming to school anymore. One did keep coming, and he continued to give me trouble for the rest of 8th grade, but he either dropped out or changed schools after that, so I never saw him again in high school. You/Wiftdog_millionaire responded. He died not long after high school. For context, he was a big dude, like 6 feet 2 inches, and was known for taking and dealing roids. Sometime after high school he was caught with steroids, a vial of fentanyl, and some mystery pills during a traffic stop. Not 2 days later he was in jail for an undisclosed amount of time. When his house was raided, it was said they found a duffel bag full of those pills and more steroids he was dealing. Within a week, he was out of jail and committed suicide 2 days later. Within the next couple days I read a little article about a drug raid a town over where they found tens of thousands of unidentified pills, barrels of fentanyl, and large bags full of steroids. To this day, I lean towards thinking he snitched on the wrong fellas, got out and knew something worse would happen to him. Either way, good riddance. Thought I'd share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Leave your own stories down below, I would love to read them. If you would like to see more videos like this, please like and subscribe, it helps me out greatly.